Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff. It's part one of my new build on this new tool, Airfix 1:35 scale Ferret Scout car. This is the Mark II. It's kit number A1379, released in early September of 2023. Let's build it. Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff and our build of the Ferret. We're going to go through the whole process start to finish. Not quite sure how the videos are going to come out. I'm not doing this particularly as a beginner's build, and I'm not doing it particularly as an advanced build. I don't know if I'm going to scratch build anything or not. Realistically, it's a bit of light relief from all the photo etch and detail building that I've been doing on my two big builds at the moment, the Queen Mary 2 and the Wingnut Wings Gota. So I've been looking forward to this, and I planned that whenever this came out, I'd just build it as a bit of light relief. So let's get on. First thing I've got to do is remove the flying hours. So usually the flying hours pretty much reflect the skill level of the kit. This is a skill level 2, so we've got 2 flying hours. So I always remove these straight away. Usually I do them as I get the kit. I check the kit contents. These days I do a first impressions video, and that is when I check the contents at the same time, really. And then I remove these and I put them in a little jar so I can count them up. So if you're not a member of the Airfix club, it is definitely something worth thinking about. Because what you can do, I've now got 20 of these flying hours, but a couple of months ago I had 70 of them. And what happens is, as you buy a kit, you collect them up, and then you can put them into this little passport and you send it off, and in exchange for a free kit. So like I say, a couple of months I had 70. I've only got 20 now, but that went right down to 10 because I traded 60 of them in for a Dakota Skytrain. So that's 40 odd quid's worth of model kit I got for free. So I got a free kit this year, thanks to the passport. But also, if you buy them from the Airfix website and you're an Airfix club member, you get 10% off pre-orders and everything, and not just the kits, everything else in the shop, including paint and all of the other sundries that they sell. But also, if you use the Airfix website, you get hobby points as well. So for every £10 you spend, you get 10 points. Well, actually, for every pound you spend, you get a point. And those points add up. So this kit currently costs around about, I'm going to forget now, £25, is it? Something like that. So you'll get 25 hobby points, and that's worth £2.50 to you off a kit. So you get your 10% off, your hobby points off, and then you get your flying club hours, which contributes to a free kit. So it's worth doing. Now, another thing I should say before we get stuck in is, if you're interested in this and you'd like to have a quick walk around a real one, go and check out Steve Jones' scale modelling site, who has a lovely walk around of a Mark I version of one of these. There's not a big difference with the Mark I and the Mark II, I don't think. But he has a lovely walk around, gets up close and what have you. Obviously, it's a restored one, so approach with caution. But it's a great little video on a great channel, so go and check that out. Right, time to have a look at the instructions, which is always my first step. So, first thing we've got to decide is what version are we doing. Now, there's 3 versions in the kit. There's A, which are a standard, I'd say common green. It's the bronze green colour. That's probably the most recognisable one. There is a training one, which is nice and bright, but you have no gun in there, which, you know, I want to have the gun. Simple as that. Or there's this one, the Cypress one, which is a bit of a challenge in a number of different ways, because you've got a green undercarriage, and then you've got this matte white version, so it's sort of UN markings almost. Although it doesn't say it's UN markings, it says British Army Overseas. So I think I quite like this. I hate painting white, so it's a bit strange that I'm saying that, but I think that's what we're going to do. So, yeah, I think we're going to go with the white version because I just think it'll look really cool when it's done. Yeah, we're going to do that. There's going to be lovely opportunities for doing some weathering on this, I think. Now, on the side of the box, there's a list of all the paints that you need throughout the build, whereas the paint chart just gives you the exterior colours that you need. So there's an additional 5 colours there that will be used throughout the build that are not called on here. So I've just written those down. Now, I'm not generally planning to use Humbrol colours for this. I have most of the Humbrol paints, and in fact, I have all of these, but I've recently bought into some ICM paints, and I want to give them a good play with. So this is a nice opportunity. So we've decided we are doing C, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to jog through and have a look at the build sequence and see if there's anything that sort of makes sense to me to do a little bit differently. And it's sort of all making sense, really, to be honest. Gets quite involved when you're putting the wheels on. And in terms of sub-assemblies, the only real sub-assemblies that we've got, other than the turret, is the wheels and the fuel cans. So I'm not going to worry about putting them together early. I'm going to just crack on, and we'll do this in the recommended kit order. What I am going to do is I'm going to take out any step that refers to anything that is not step C. So where we've got this that says it's an option for B, or that's an option for B, or that's an option for B, and that's an option for A and C, so no rack for A and C, and we're doing C, so I can cross out those stages, and that will just save me some time. So I'll carry on doing that, and I'll get back to you when we're ready to cut plastic. Right, first part that we need to remove is this, and what I'm going to do as I'm sort of doing the build, I'm going to point out ways of doing things for the uninitiated in building model kits, those of you that might be new, but I'm not going to labour on it. Now actually, first thing is I should wash these parts, and I've forgotten to do that, so I'm going to go and do that in a minute. But this first piece here has some ejector pin marks in, and what I need to understand is whether that one there gets covered or not, and it's not really very clear from looking at the instructions. I think it might do, but at the same time, it's a possibility it's between the two seats and that's going to get seen. So what I want to do is build up the interior parts, dry fit them all, understand that before we do any gluing, so we can fill that if needs be. It is slightly recessed, so yeah, it would need filling. Right, I've been cleaning up the parts and building up the interior. This is by no means finished, just to understand whether we'd be able to see that ejector pin mark, and the short answer is yes, we can. So I've got to say the fit is really nice and tight, because, I mean, look, if I turn that upside down, the radio set doesn't come off. It is really nicely designed. So I've got to fill that, so that is what we're going to do next. So I'm just going to run some Mr. Surfacer in. This is Mr. Surfacer 500. Let's give that a bit of a mix up. Tend to find it settles, especially if you've not used it for a little while. Okay, and the trick is to put too much on. Build it up. I'm using the 500 because it's the thickest, and build it up so that you've got like a dome of it, because what will happen is it will shrink back, and with a bit of luck you've still got a little bit too much, and that's going to help when you come to sand it. So we're going to have to leave that a bit longer to dry. The other way of doing it is to put lots of thin layers on, but that's even more time consuming because you're drying time in between. So just get as much of this off as we can. There we go. So I'll put that to one side to dry, and then I'm going to continue to clean up the interior parts. Right, we have removed our ejector pin from the floor. That'll be good enough. And what I want to do now is get everything built up that's going to be painted in the aluminium, which is the internal colour. So there's some things we can build up now, and then there's other things that we're going to sort of want to build up later on. But we can paint them all at the same time is sort of the plan. So we can start going back to step one. We can now start building this up a little bit. So step one is putting in this piece, which had quite a bit of seam on it. It took quite a bit of cleanup to get it right, and it locates in these two points here and in this point here. So you've got three sort of location points. So we can run some glue in there, just hold that into place. Let capillary action do its thing. There we go. Sorry if I took that out of shot. Sometimes I forget the camera's running. Right, so that's the first step done. Then we put in this bulkhead here, and again there was quite a heavy seam on here that we had to clean up. So that locates, there's two little cutouts which goes over there, and that point backs up to there, like so. And again, we can simply hold that in place and run the glue in from the inside. and just a spot in the front there. Okay, so that's that in. Now the radio set isn't painted aluminium. It's greens and blacks, plus we want to pick out some details. So even though that fits in nice and tight now, I don't want to paint that just yet. So we'll paint that separately. So that's a standalone item for us, and that actually gets us to the end of step 6, because there's 3 steps in there which aren't for paint version C. So then we've got this seat that goes in, which is this cushion here, and again that's painted in black with aluminium underneath, so we can paint that separately come the time. Then we have this chair, and again it's black and aluminium, so we want to paint these 2 parts separately and then glue them together. So that's those bits done. Then we put this part in. So the question is, do I want to build the bulkhead up and paint it all in situ? And I think we could probably do that. I think we could probably build that up on both sides and get in with the airbrush. I don't think that would be too difficult. So I think that's my play there. So get that all clicked into place. Fits really nice. Really, really nice. So we'll start gluing at the back. Do that back edge first and make sure that's all nice and square and sitting as it should do. Just give that a moment, because it's kicking out at the front there. It's probably this isn't quite completely flat. Okay, that's holding itself now, so put the glue in at the front. Now I'm not sure how much contact there is along that edge. It looks like we're seeing air through it, but it might just be the very thin end of the taper. So I'm just going to hold it together and give it a helping hand. Doesn't need clamping, we can just hold it for a sec. Okay, right, so we'll do exactly the same with the other side. There we go. So same process, we'll glue it in at the back. Just hold that for a sec. Okay. Now there's a lot of detail missing from the interior of this. If you look at pictures online, there's all sorts of equipment and stuff in here. I'm sure the aftermarket boys will go to town with it, but I'm not going to worry. Now there's a couple of ejector pin marks on the front here. Don't worry about them, because when this is built up you ain't gonna see them. Okay, so quite quickly we've got something that looks sort of like a ferret. I'll just hold that together, give it a gentle pinch. And one thing I am interested in is in the instructions we fit this plate first, and then we fit this. Right, okay, I can see why now. So that's butting up to that. Okay, fits really good. Fit is really good. Right, just gonna let that dry. So when I take my fingers off, there is no releasing of that. I can see that that's all good. Yeah, happy that's all good and tight. Right, so I've already made up the two hatches for the back, and what you can do, they've got a hinge which allows you to plop it in, and put it in the right one, it'll help. Plop it in, and then you can clip it into place, and you can see the interior detail, or you can glue it open. So I think it should be able to go in and glue that in afterwards, but it's different colours. It's not the aluminium, so we want to paint that separately. And if we put it on now, which would be pretty much the next step, step 15, I think that's going to be a bit more difficult to paint. So I think that's as far as we can build that up. That can't go on until that's gone on, and we don't need to worry about painting that for now. So these need to be left as separate parts for now, but we do have the other bits that go around. So we have done, we've not done the assembly of that, have we? Although we have done 10 and 11. So we can leave 14, 15, 16, 17. We can clean up the part for that. So it's telling us to paint that 56, which is the aluminium. It must mean on the internal surfaces, but you ain't gonna see them. There's no engine, so you're never gonna see that. So let's get that part cleaned up next, which is part A1. And when we've done the painting, we'll be able to clean up all these parts, assemble all these parts in short order is the plan. A little bit of scene to treat. Okay, and I'll just test fit that, make sure everything's good. There we go. That looks the part, doesn't it? Fit is lovely. Fit is really nice. Okay, so that's the part ready for step 17. So next we are doing more of these window shutters. So we've got, so what they do is they build them up in two parts. So there's your internal surfaces, and then you glue them onto the inside, and that's your external surface. So we want 16 and 15. And that's going to 17 and 18. Okay. So on the hinges, the trick is to cut, leaving you a little bit of clean up. So on the edge there where it's circular, that's where the sprue gate is attached. And then we're going to go in with a medium coarse grit and just gently put the top of the curve in where the sprue gate was. And then there's seam on the side. We can take that off. That might interfere with the fit, so we don't want that there. There we go. And then either with a knife or a scraping tool, you need to get in and get the seam on the inside as well. And now we can get in and much more closely trim, but we're not taking it right to the part, we're just leaving a little nub to trim back with the sanding stick. Now this is in the internal part, so you won't really see it, but it's still worth doing a good job of it. So that's the internal part, and that's going to go into that one. So we'll clean that up, and then we can show you how it all builds up. Unfortunately, the sprue gate has caused a little bit of deformity on the outside edge of this one, which is a real shame. Don't think it'd be too noticeable. Just a little bit of pitting there. Okay. Just make sure there is no sanding witness left. So just polishing it up with a smooth polishing stick. And we can take our internal part, pop that in. There you go, it's as simple as that. Now let's get the part that goes into, which is A2. which is one of these side panels here. I'll just show you how that goes in. So you can see there they've got the side parts of the hinge there, so it just plops into the hinge space, and you can have that fully open just as the original worked. So that's really, really cool. Yeah, like that a lot. So it allows you to have the same hinge and you have it open or closed, and if you close it, the fit is really nice and tight. In fact, you have to sort of hold it in a little bit because it is that tight. But there you go. So I'll carry on getting these parts all cleaned up, which will get us to step 23, and then we've got the front plate to do, which will also be aluminium on the inside, and that has the steering wheel, which we'll want to paint separately. 29 gives us the engine covers, and that is all the interior painting we can do then. So that's the point when we start painting. So I'll come back to it when the parts are cleaned up. Just have to make sure I get this the right way around. Unlike the others which were shaped, this just being square, need to make sure the vision block is pointing in the right direction internally. When I look at this nice and close, there's all sorts of little spring detail and all sorts in here. It's a really nicely detailed part, and then when we paint it, it'll pop out because we've got the black. We can paint the vision block. The instructions don't tell you to paint the vision block glass, but I'm going to. Right, that's step 24. Step 25 is the front armoured plate here. So I'll just remove that. Now this has got the mounting points on for the trays that you put under wheels to get them out of the mud or the sand. So they'll mount across there, which in this version go on. I've no doubt that there'll be photo-etch replacements of them within a blink of an eye. They're an obvious target. Right. All of these mating surfaces are on a slight angle. Just have to bear that in mind when we're tidying up. We don't want to change the shape of the part. Okay, and that goes into there nicely, and look what they've done. Got a little cutout there, and when you put the front glacis plate on, you've then got a location point for your mudguard. Now that goes in nicely. So again, we want to paint the inside of that aluminium, and when you've got the side pieces in here, like so, there is a possibility at certain angles you might just see those two ejector pin marks. Now they're raised. I think we want to try and have a go at just smoothing them down. Right, just going to go in with a chisel and see if we can just take it out and not have to worry too much about the cleanup. So there is some detail around this opening and I don't want to remove any of that. And this chisel, I thought it might be a bit too wide, but just happens to fit perfectly between the two raised details that we need to keep. I'm just going to use the smaller one. Now I find that sometimes I can get a flatter surface using the chisel, strictly speaking, upside down. Right, now then, where's my emery board? There we go. So I'm just going to go in with the narrow end of my emery boards. This is an emery board like you'd buy in a supermarket, and I just cut a point on it. Just to finish it off. And we can just go in with the polishing stick, which is on a sponge, so that will fit in nicely. And then the last little trick we can do is just lightly brush it with some liquid poly. There we go. So you're hardly going to see that strip anyway, but if you do, you're certainly not going to see any ejector pin marks. So that front plate has this go on it. There you go, and that hinge looks lovely. Yeah, really nice. Now on the inside there's a steering wheel that mounts on there, but we're not going to put that in just yet. Because we want to do the painting on the internal surfaces. What I'm going to do next though is clean up the two engine covers, these hatches here. So 12 and 8. Oh, right, there you go. So that'll leave us with what, 2 parts on sprue A, and it'll leave us with 6 on sprue B, 2 of which we're going to use. The rest are other options, different radio sets and stands for them. Oh, don't want to take that off just yet. Okay, right. I'm going to get these cleaned up and then we'll have a look at what's next. Interestingly, the covers, the engine covers, lovely details on them. They have little latches on the inside. So even though there isn't an engine included, they do look authentic in an open position. So we just need someone to make an engine and job's done. So I think we can glue those into place before we've fitted the plate. So that's what I'm going to do. So just a wee dab of glue on the hinge for a starter. Do that on both sides. There we go. That's the back plate built up. And it has a lovely authentic gap all the way around. So it just sits proud. Looks really cool. Yeah. Very happy with that. When you put them on, do make sure you get them right because they are different. There's a lump there on that side. So you can see in the instructions there how that's supposed to be. I was wondering whether we needed to widen the gap in the vent here. But I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it as it is. Okay, that's step 29 parts done. So we've got some bits and pieces that we can put onto here now, but I'm not sure that I'm going to do that just yet. So that is everything for the silver painting, other than I just want to check whether the inside of the turret is silver, because if the inside of the turret is silver, then it makes sense to paint all that at the same time. 56 silver. Well, it says that piece and that, right, yeah. So we could have a look at doing the in the turret. So let's have a look at that. So that jumps us ahead to step 81. Let's have a look at that. So the turret starts with the turret base, which I'm guessing is what we all would expect, and then we've got this ring which forms part of that base. So there's a couple of location lugs. Other than that, I don't think it makes much difference which lug it goes in. So yeah, and then that has to be all painted aluminium, but I think it's going to leave a fairly reasonable gap on the inside, so I'm going to want to fill that first, I think. Let's get the parts cleaned up and then we'll have a look at filling it. Right, so I'm going to use a Perfect plastic putty, which is a fairly recent addition to my range of fillers, and actually I really like it. It's a very fine filler. I nearly put it on the part there. So the grain in it is very, very fine. Finest filler I've worked with, and it dries hard like a Squadron or a Humbrol filler, but it almost works a bit like the Vallejo filler. It's easy to put in, but then you can sand it and shape it because it's really hard afterwards. So this is sort of best of all worlds, really. There we go, we've gone all the way around there. make sure we've filled it. There we go, so we can let that dry, and whilst I've got some filler, might as well check what we've done, because there is just a couple of hairline gaps just at the front on both sides. So I think this part is ever so slightly too long, and it's just forced it up a little bit, which I didn't see when we were gluing it in. You can see, just like Vallejo filler, you can wipe it in, wipe it away, job done. Okay, it is now next day and our filler has dried. And what we need to do now is sand that smooth, and to do that I've got some emery paper that I've just rolled up, which gives me a nice round surface for me to get in and get rid of that filler. Now we should get to a point where we've got a nice even surface and we can only see the white in the gaps that were left between the two mating parts. So this isn't going to be a particularly quick job. I'm not using a particularly coarse grit either. And what will generally happen is you'll get a little bit of clogging from the filler. Although I'm trying to use, I have a drawer full of offcuts of emery paper, some of them decades old, and I've got all sorts of different grits and different types, sandpaper, glass paper, and they all come in handy from time to time. I might not use one for a couple of years, and then that's the perfect piece of paper. You can see we're just slowly taking that down and smoothing everything off. You could, if you wanted, just start with a file, a half round or a rat tail, and just rough it out, but because we smooth this down as we put it on, we've not actually got that much to get through. You can see we're starting to get through there now. I'm just going to do one section to show you what that looks like, and then I'll crack on and finish the rest of it. There we go, you can see we've got a little line of white because it was quite a wide little gap. Basically the two parts were rounded off, so that gave you a sort of a flat surface and then a bit of a wide trough before you actually got the join. So it's going to look more dramatic than you think. It's not that the parts aren't joined, you can see that they are, but it was just the way the parts were shaped. So that will deal with that nicely. So I'll carry on and get that done and come back to you when it's finished. Well, that's all of our parts now painted in the aluminium, which is the colour for the interior of our Ferret. So what we can do now is go right back to step 1 and start doing any detail painting. And I also want to give this a bit of a wash, which just helps bring the aluminium out. I think the aluminium on the black just darkens it down a little bit, and I think the ICM aluminium really does come out nicely. It's really a lovely metallic colour and a nice finish, I think. So I'm happy with that. So we're at the point where we're going to go back through these, and we've got some detail painting to do with the radio set. Now, looking at pictures of the radio set, and they've just said paint it 75, which but there's more to it than that. So I'm going to show you what I think it looks like by detail painting that. Anyway, we're going to work through the instructions now, and we'll be able to get it pretty much to this point here when we're adding the steering wheel. So let's crack on with that.